Lies, slander, intimidation, bullying, coercion. These are not words you expect to hear about in Islamic Institute, but this is the story of what happened to an 18-year-old teenager, a brother named Musa, who dared to do what nearly all of his seniors who have decades of Islamic learning and preaching the deen are too afraid to do. Confront a so-called scholar about clear and documented wrongdoing. What began as a respectful question inside a masjid in Houston, Texas, turned into an hour-long nightmare of threats, intimidation, humiliation, and physical coercion, all in relation with Yaser Birjas and AlMaghrib Institute. Instead of dialogue, there was intimidation. Instead of accountability, there was abuse. And instead of justice, there was a ban. Yes, after being cornered, physically restrained, and having his phone forcefully and illegally taken, the 18-year-old teenager was banned from all AlMaghrib events. This is the story they tried to cover up. This is the story of Musa versus Yaser Birjas, and it's time the world heard it. Just last month, inside Islamic Spanish Center, located in Houston, Texas, a young Muslim, 18 years old, quietly approached Yaser Birjas during an intermission of his Love Notes marriage seminar. He patiently waited in line behind a few sisters in order to field some pressing questions that were disturbing him for some time. His goal was simple: to ask Yaser why he lied, why he publicly claimed that Salman called the police on himself during the swatting attack at his home. A fabricated claim that led to my name and my picture being circulated in the masjid and in the community as a possible threat.
Hello, I just did something really bad and I want to end my life.
Are you there alone?
Yes,
Okay, and what happened? What did you do?
I stabbed my girlfriend several times. She's not breathing anymore.
Where is she? Where in the house is she?
In the bathroom.
Can you go see her, see if she's breathing?
No, she's dead.
Where did you stab her?
I have a gun. I will end my life.
Why did you stab her? What happened?
On the back, on the other side of that alleyway back there. Okay, down in the alleyway. Too far down the place. Left. 41, I got the alleyway club. 41 is here.
I want to give you that stack up on the left.
Police! 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 Just hold you. Police! Police! I got you. Police! Urban police, come out!
I called the police to go and assist and help. We came basically with a report that's saying the call came from your house. I got the call. The moment you called, in regard to this issue, we said, guys, we have a situation here. We need to make sure that, everything is okay. We got the call. So I got actually the report, not the report, at least the verbal actually, report from the police saying that they traced the calls, eventually it came from your place.
On that day, what the imām of our mosque claims is that he spoke with somebody from the police. I believe he said that he got a call from the police, and they said that the call came from my house.
No, that's not true at all. I don't know where they got that information, but that did not come. It's one of those internet phone numbers, and then it was deleted, and it was under false pretense. You know what I mean? It's created under false pretense. So I don't know who said that.
Absolutely. And so what's
that's
really
false. Nothing in there about that at all. I didn't speak, and it's been a while. I've talked to a lot of people, but no, I did not speak to any imam from the. So I don't know what they're talking about, but it's definitely not in my report. You can sue them in civil court for defamation of character.
Yeah.
The civil litigations of that can be, and then use the reports, as like saying, hey, here's the reports, and they can subpoena me to a civil court and say, hey, did you? Nope, never spoke to that person. Nope, never spoke to the. For civil remedies.
Just over 2 weeks back, the man behind my swatting incidents confessed in federal court to orchestrating hundreds of attacks. His admission proves the lies about me were baseless and malicious. Despite this, those responsible for the slander remain silent, unwilling to admit their deceit. I have proven, without an ounce of doubt, the indisputable fact that Omar Suleiman, Yaser Birjas, and the Valley Ranch Islamic Center all relayed egregious lies and tried to cover it up. First, I shared details from the police report and a criminal court judge-signed warrant and subpoena, which obtained the origins of the call, proving that the call did not come from my house. Second, I shared the Irving Police lead detective's testimony, stating that the call did not come from my house, and that he never even spoke to the imam. And now, the final straw. Just this past month, the FBI investigation-driven confession with the U.S. Department of Justice by the individual who coordinated and was behind the swatting attack. So we now have the person who committed the crime, who confessed to it. What other excuses are they going to try and make? What other lies are they going to try and spin to defend themselves? Where is Omar Suleiman? Where is Yaser Birjas? Where are the board members and the security team from the Valley Ranch Islamic Center? Why do they remain silent? Why do they refuse to accept responsibility? They got caught red-handed for spreading lies, and yet they want to ignore it and desperately pray and hope that everyone forgets about it by making passionate pleas for other issues around the world. I am currently working on establishing an investigation with the U.S. Department of Justice and FBI and intend on pursuing criminal charges against all those responsible. Musa had seen the indisputable evidence, the contradictions, and the silence that followed. So he did what any sincere Muslim should. He sought clarification directly, calmly, and respectfully. But Yaser Birjas, instead of responding with honesty, deflected. Because that's exactly what liars do when challenged with the truth. When pressed about his lies and slander, he responded to Musa saying, "Go ask him, not me. And even worse, go talk to the ex-wives of the men who had spoken up against him." Moments later, Yaser Birjas noticed Musa was recording the conversation. But why? For what reason? It was for his own safety and to preserve the truth, and to serve as a protection from liars that use their religious positions and influence to twist the narrative. That's when everything changed. Yaser Birjas immediately ordered someone to take the phone and delete the recording.
I was gonna say, I don't know Brother Salman personally, but I seen his videos and stuff, so I've seen how he was got swatted and stuff, and how you were claiming that the call came from his house, but actually the guy got arrested. There's some 18-year-old guy, and he was doing this hundreds of times, making fake situations and then getting people swatted. So my question is, why haven't you spoken up? Why haven't you taken back what you said? If you made a mistake and you're lying and slandering against him, Brother Salman, the guy from VRIC.
What do you know about the situation anyway?
I know he got banned, and
What do you know about the situation?
there was a video of him asking you about it, and you kind of just ignored him and walked off, because he has a YouTube channel. So I saw all the videos, so I kind of know a lot about the situation. What?
Ask him, don't ask me.
Ask him what?
This question. Okay?
Yeah, but do you understand what I'm saying? If you were truthful, you would have had advice.
Can you take his phone, his recording?
Sorry?
Take his recording and delete the recording. Take the phone and take the phone.
Within seconds, several men surrounded him. They blocked his exit. They backed him into a wall. The crowd watched as a teenager was cornered, interrogated, and humiliated right inside the hall. They forced him into a side classroom with glass walls where multiple people continued to pressure him to delete the recording. For over an hour, they bombarded him with threats. Delete it or we'll call the police. Delete it or we'll fine you. Delete it or you'll be arrested for trespassing. Delete it or we'll kick your. Yet the irony and the horror is that he was the one being unlawfully detained. He had a ticket to attend the AlMaghrib class. He was even willing to peacefully leave. But they were the ones stopping him from leaving the building. A senior AlMaghrib figure then got involved, Waleed Basyouni, the president of AlMaghrib Institute. Rather than stopping the abuse, he joined in on the intimidation, trying to coerce him to delete the recording. Imagine that, a teenager surrounded by adults, terrified, his phone in his pocket being demanded, and the president of a global Islamic institute telling him he's sinful for recording what is within his legal rights and his only means of protection against someone proven to be a habitual and compulsive liar. When a barrage of threats didn't work, they escalated further. One man, a member of the Young Muslims organization, told Musa that another individual, quote, had a Glock, a gun. Let that sink in, threatening him and inferring that they could take physical action that could harm his life. Then, as the situation reached its peak, a man named Ernest forcefully wrapped his arm around Musa's waist, picked him up, dragged him outside, and stuck his hand into Musa's pocket to snatch his phone. He then threatened Musa to factory reset his phone and then mail it back to him. When that didn't work, another individual took the phone and tried to unlock it by holding it in front of Musa's face, to which Musa quickly put up his hand to block it. This is sickening. This is illegal. This is the very definition of abuse of power. A young Muslim, still a teenager, was physically assaulted, restrained, and violated inside a masjid by men claiming to represent knowledge and religion. They put their hands on him. They tried to unlock his phone by force. They tried to illegally erase any evidence. This is un-Islamic. This is criminal, and this is flat out disgusting. There is no justification under the Sharia, under law, or under any form of basic human decency for such behavior. These are acts of intimidation, coercion, and theft, all committed in the name of protecting a sheikh. What kind of religious institution allows this to happen under its roof? What kind of leadership turns a blind eye while a teenager is being physically manhandled to protect the reputation of a celebrity imam? These are not the actions of men of God. They are the actions of cowards, of enablers, of people drunk on power and obsessed with image. It is vile, it is shameful, and it is a complete betrayal of everything Islam stands for: justice, dignity, and the sanctity of one's rights. The very next day, Brother Musa filed a police report, a case that remains open and under investigation. But what was AlMaghrib's response to this whole incident? They didn't investigate, they didn't apologize. Instead, they banned him permanently. This is what AlMaghrib Institute has become: a sanctuary for gangsters, wearing the garb of religiosity and performative piety, masquerading as scholars, where truth is punished and corruption is protected. What was done to this young man is not only immoral, it is criminal. Assault, intimidation, unlawful detention. And the people behind it weren't thugs on the street. They were religious figures using the sacred walls of a masjid to carry out intimidation in defense of their sheikh. I want to take a moment to really bring something into focus for everyone watching and for our ummah. Dawah mafia is not just some meme or baseless phrase. It encapsulates the reality of how a large portion of the religious network of leaders operate. If there's one thing they want you to believe, it is that they are of a protected class. They are above accountability. They are infallible. Their sincerity and their actions are to never be questioned. And if you dare get near to the hornet's nest, you will feel the fury of stings you could never have fathomed. They will ban you. They will ostracize you, demonize you, and do everything in their power behind closed doors to ensure that your existence in the community will be one characterized with disgrace. But what does this incident, along with the many others I have detailed for the past 2 years, what does this say about the so-called religious leaders of our time? Men who speak endlessly about Islamic manners, yet have none when confronted with the truth. And what does it say about Waleed Basyouni, who, instead of condemning the abuse, used his religious authority to pressure a teenager to delete evidence and then banned him from AlMaghrib Institute? When I personally reached out to Waleed Basyouni as someone who's known him for over 15 years, studied under him, and respected him, he ignored me.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh Waleed. I hope this message reaches you in goodness. You and I have known each other for over 15 years, dating back to my early days with Kabila Durba in New Jersey. I took your classes under AlMaghrib, admired your teaching, and respected you as a leader. It pains me deeply to be writing to you in this manner. Yesterday, a brother by the name of Musa approached Yaser Birjas out of his religious obligation to confront transgressions and falsehoods that have been repeatedly exposed. Instead of being met with dialogue or accountability, he was subjected to intimidation, threats, physical handling, and the attempted seizure of his phone. Among the things he faced were being cornered by multiple individuals and pressured for nearly an hour, being forcefully grabbed and escorted outside, having his phone taken by force and attempts made to unlock it with Face ID, threats of violence including direct statements such as, "I'm gonna beat your," and reference to a man carrying a gun, emotional intimidation involving his family, and coercion to delete the recording. These are criminal actions, assaults, threats, intimidation, and attempted unlawful seizure of property. Yet instead of condemning these actions, your institute's immediate response was to ban Musa from all future AlMaghrib events. Do you, Sheikh, find this acceptable conduct at an AlMaghrib event under your presidency? Are you willing to demand an investigation and hold individuals accountable for their actions? I ask plainly and directly, is this Islam? Is this the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the way of the Sahaba? To silence, ban, and slander those who raise legitimate concerns while protecting those accused of lies and corruption. For years now, multiple brothers, myself included, have come forward with testimonies, evidence, and eyewitness accounts of lies, deceit, and malice from Yaser Birjas. Our peaceful attempts at requesting an investigation were ignored. When I spoke up, I was banned from the masjid and slander spread against me. Now another brother has been threatened, intimidated, and criminally assaulted simply for approaching him. You told Musa it was haram to record, yet you publicly recommended Dunya Shoaib, who has recorded multiple shuyukh in private settings without consequence, praising her, vouching for her, and even inviting her to your masjid multiple times. Her videos are still up on the masjid's social media. Where is the consistency? Why is the standard bent when it involves protecting certain figures while others are condemned and cast out? The hypocrisy and double standards amongst our so-called leaders is staggering. I always respected you, Sheikh, but I cannot reconcile silence and cover-ups with the Quranic command to forbid evil and establish justice. The Prophet ﷺ said, help your brother, whether he's an oppressor or oppressed. The companions asked, we understand helping him when he is oppressed, but how do we help him when he is an oppressor? He ﷺ replied, by preventing him from oppressing others. This is not prevention, it is complicity. I want to make it clear, this matter will not remain hidden. AlMaghrib Institute will be in the public spotlight very soon. I and others have tried every avenue of private correction only to be met with bans, slander, and threats. Now we have reached a point where even criminal intimidation at Islamic events is being justified and swept under the rug. Do you not fear standing before Allah, having ignored multiple testimonies and enabled corruption to fester under your leadership? There are imams and scholars who quietly support me, but they remain silent for fear of losing their positions. This fear alone is an indictment of the culture AlMaghrib has allowed to grow, one where truth is buried and reputation is prioritized over justice. I remind you, Sheikh, that silence in the face of injustice is not neutrality. It is siding with oppression and transgressions. I urge you to reflect deeply. Will you either be remembered as someone who upheld haqq or as someone who turned a blind eye to injustice due to personal relationships and public perception? Allahumma musta'an.
He knew the facts, he saw the evidence, and he still chose silence because he can't handle the truth. None of these people can. That is why they refuse to engage in any discussion. That is why they refuse to investigate any matters that don't make it to global headlines. That silence is deafening. That silence is complicity. That silence is betrayal. And that silence is in complete contradiction to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. We've reached a point where these leaders only speak up when it's convenient, like in the case of Wissam Sharif. I am fully convinced that had someone voiced a complaint directly with AlMaghrib in regards to Wissam, they would have turned a blind eye. And that the only reason they quickly addressed it was because he was caught by the authorities. And they needed to engage in damage control. They needed to ensure that the PR would avert any negative and reputation damaging chatter. But when multiple brothers, myself included, bring forward verified documented cases against Yaser Birjas, they hide behind bureaucracy and ban the victims and the ones demanding justice. Even when Imam Nick from the Islamic Center of Irving met privately with multiple AlMaghrib instructors, including Yaser Birjas and Omar Suleiman, regarding a case of sexual abuse of minors, they did nothing. Let me repeat that. A case of sexual abuse of minors, and they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And to this day, they remain silent. Don't yap on about how much they are doing on social media for the children of Gaza when they don't even give a damn about the children in their own community.
This message is for all of the preachers, teachers, ustads, sheikhs, sheikhettes, YouTube TMZ personalities that now have found their courage and have something they want to say about this Wissam issue. Let me give you a little bit of advice. How about, before you put your foot in your mouth, along with that courage you find just a little bit of integrity and admit that you're part of the problem, that you're in part enablers. Because back in 2018, when I was a whistleblower, when I called this shit out, and when I was run under the bus, and when no one else stood up for those children, when a Pakistani man was grabbing children's and sucking on their face and left bruises on a child, you all turned a blind eye. Every single little one of you pricks. Omar Suleiman, Yaser Birjas, Yasser Qadi, Abdul Nasser Jenga, everybody associated with Qalam, Yaqeen, Mas, Ikna, Isna. Where were you then? A little bit odd you all have something to say now, despite the fact that we had physical evidence visible on the child. We had a picture of it. We had eyewitness testimony. There were meeting notes describing the disgusting acts. Not one of you spoke up for those children. Not one of you defended the only person who actually did. But now you want to get up on your high horse and act like you're some defender of the community? You are in part enablers, because when you let that happen to the children in Irving, and when you let what happened to me, you essentially told every victim in the community and every potential whistleblower, don't speak up. We're not going to back you. Don't speak up. Keep it quiet. You told every potential perpetrator in the community, green light, open season. Because now you know, we're way more concerned with our reputation than calling out injustices. We don't want it to make us look bad. Say, oh, but they're speaking up now. Yeah, why are they speaking up now? They're speaking up because the authorities got involved. They're speaking up because, well, this guy was in their social circle and they shared the stage with them, so gotta distance myself. They're speaking up because there's no plausible deniability. We can't just wave this off and be like, oh, cultural misunderstanding. The difference is that in this situation, the authorities were notified first, then the community found out about it. In my situation, the community found out about it and tried to cover it up. And so by the time that the police were involved, it's hard to prosecute people when the perpetrators on the other side of the planet and victims and their families won't speak out. So miss me with all these crocodile tears of people who are just trying to cover their ass and be like, oh, well, I would definitely speak out about this. You would? Really? And to prove a point, because some of you are going to say, yeah, but this was so much more severe. Okay, really? Because it was severe and the authorities got involved? That's why they're speaking out now? So shortly after I was run out of the community in Irving and run out of the Muslim community entirely, at the Islamic Center of Irving, a security guard, Hamza, who happened to be on the board and happened to be in charge of youth activities, was arrested for aggravated sexual assault because he took a child into a classroom and did whatever the hell he wanted. No outcry there, was there? Well, it's better to keep these things quiet. We don't want the community to look bad. You had all the opportunity in the world to stand up, speak out. None of you did anything. You've created this environment. And for you to come on these platforms now with your bullshit talks, by shutting a person like me down, you taught the community, we don't expose this type of stuff. Reputation supersedes everything. And you taught perpetrators, if you can get away with it, it's okay. Don't miss me with these crocodile tears and this paper tiger energy of aggression and anger over what has happened. Fitna is not me telling you that I met with Yaser Birjas and Omar Suleiman to discuss this issue, and they did absolutely nothing to support these kids that were abused mere minutes from their own homes. Fitna is not me pointing out that they did not use their platforms at all. The fitna is that people who present themselves as leaders of the community and defenders of justice only pose as leaders and defenders of justice for issues that their financial supporters support. I mean, do we only cry for the victims of our enemies?
The message is clear. Protect the image, not the victims. These are the people who preach justice on stage while covering up or even perpetrating injustice behind closed doors. They recite verses about standing for the oppressed, yet when the oppressed stand before them, they turn away. I challenge any scholar, any imam, any religious leader out there, tell me one incident where someone came to the Prophet ﷺ, came to Abu Bakr, came to Umar ibn al-Khattab, came to Uthman ibn Affan, came to Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhum, with complaints, with grievances, with allegations, and where they turn them away, where they ignore them, or even worse, where they ban them from the masjid. Do not dare preach the sunnah when you refuse to live it. You do not carry the torch of all the previous prophets, nor of our beloved and final messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor of the rightly guided khulafa. You storytell and use Islam as a means of enriching your livelihood and your reputation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Men will appear near the end of time who seek the worldly life with religion." Seek the worldly life with religion. Confusing the people. Their skin is as soft as sheep. Their words are sweeter than sugar. Yet their hearts are like the hearts of wolves. Accountability does not stop at the pulpit. Yaser Birjas, the list of apologies you owe only continue to grow. And now you owe an apology to Brother Musa. None of this would have happened if you would have just been a man and taken accountability for your reckless actions. A teenager simply asking questions to ascertain the truth would not have had to go through such a traumatic experience. But all of this happened because you couldn't stand to be questioned. You couldn't stand a teenager calling you out. You couldn't stand the fact that you keep being exposed. I call on AlMaghrib Institute and Waleed Basyouni to immediately lift the ban on Musa, publicly apologize to him and announce an independent investigation into Yaser Birjas and the 4 brothers who have brought forward testimonies and evidence against him. If they so choose to ignore our call for an investigation, then let the world see their hypocrisy for what it is. A dawah mafia built on intimidation, blind loyalty, and silence. To all those going to Ilm Fest this weekend to seek knowledge, when you sit at the feet of these so-called scholars, remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لم تقولون ما لا تفعلون.
O believers, why do you say what you do not do? These are all people who will preach but will turn a blind eye when it comes to the wrongdoings of their colleagues. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Help your brother whether he is an oppressor or oppressed." The companions asked, "We understand helping him when he's oppressed, but how do we help him when he's an oppressor?" He ﷺ replied, "By preventing him from oppressing others." But these men, they do everything to cover up for one another, to protect their colleagues and their friends. They protect the oppressors and punish those who challenge or expose them. So let it be known, no matter how hard they try to hide behind titles, turbans, or institutions, the truth will find them. This is behind veils. Allahu musta'an.